what do you think about Elon Musk, and what role is he? Like a Nikola Tesla? Is he a good guy in your eyes? Is he somebody that the establishment can't stand? Is he someone they can't control?
Well, I think that certainly if he was inclined to research this end of it, he wouldn't be making I call it a fake Tesla. I mean, a real Tesla car wouldn't have to be plugged in. It most certainly wouldn't have 900 and some pounds of lithium-ion batteries. It would be an electromagnetic generator. If you look at this archive, we have this whole account of this inventor named Floyd Sweet. He had something the size a little bit bigger than a cigarette pack. And this was back in the 80s. And we have all the documentation on this. Huge files on it. And it was running a 300 horsepower motor that could run your car. And it never had to be plugged in. I think the battery started up with some very tiny battery, And once that circuit started, it was pulling energy out of what's called the quantum vacuum. Some people call it the zero-point energy field. But let's describe what that is. You see your tea glass there, that mug.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of potential energy in the space in that mug is enough energy to boil off all the oceans of the Earth. It's been quantified. And that's called the zero-point energy field. So if you understand the physics of these very high voltage, VHV we call them, very high voltage systems, where it may be millions of volts, but at very low power, but at certain cycles per second, certain frequencies, you can tap into that. Depends on what material you're using.
Explain zero-point energy to the average person.
Well, so visualize just the space around you.
Mm-hmm.
And everything around you, if you get down to, by classic definition, it's the energy left after even all subatomic particles have been brought down to minus 270 some degrees Kelvin. But there's still this energy field. That's the baseline energy field that all of matter, space, time, subatomic particles are fluxing in and out of. And interestingly, the early Lockheed man-made UFOs were called flux liners because they were tapping into that energy field, the quantum flux. So that's basically it. And it's huge. I mean, I think Nikola Tesla called it the infinite energy field. And Professor Dirac, and modestly called it the Dirac Sea. But a scientist named Dr. Casimir, Casimer, back in the 30s postulated this, but then proved its existence in the 50s, another important date. And that's called the Casimir effect. The scientific information on that is also in this intelligence archive. So, I wasn't even born when Professor Casimir proved the existence. Now, what's debated amongst scientists currently is that you can tap into it from a practical point of view. But you can. And the proof is, what the proof is? Look at one of those UFOs moving. No jets, no rockets, no internal combustion engines, no nuclear, no heat signature. In fact, when you get those things operational, temperature actually goes down. If you're in a hangar with 2 or 3 of these things hovering, like we have the pictures in our archive of what's called the ARB there at the Norton Air Force Base in 1988, it actually is like an air conditioning. It cooled it down. So not only do you not have heat coming off of it, it actually pulls temperature down somewhat. And so there's so many applications of these sciences. I mean, think about it. It'd be free energy, refrigeration, cooling server farms, if you're concerned about climate change for whatever reason. But even people who don't think there's climate change due to pollution, there's 5+ million people a year die from particles from emissions. Coal and gas and oil, and not to mention radiation causing cancer from nuclear. And all of that would be replaced. See, all that's gone. Now, that's the good news. The bad news is you're stepping on the toes of hundreds of trillions of dollars in assets. Not just the market cap of these big corporations, but the commodities. Think of what's traded on the Chicago Board of Trade, just in futures and commodity trading. It's trillions. So all of that, you're not trading commodities anymore.
I'm surprised you're not studying much of Jamie Dimon or Larry Fink or BlackRock or some of these guys, because Who is funding all these programs? Where are they getting the money from?
Oh, yeah. Well, Goldman Sachs and BlackRock definitely have involvement with these operations. And, the more current people who are involved, the more it's shadowy. But when people get older or pass away, then they start talking. Let me give you a great example. After World War II, at the end of the war, there was a man named Paul Mellon, who was, the Mellon, Carnegie, the Mellon family, one of the few billionaires in the world at the end of World War II. His grandson has worked with me, who was also a senator, John Warner's son. And Senator John Warner was like a lower level operative on this majority, yes. And so Paul Mellon, he went over and at the end of World War II with General Patton and Allen Dulles, and they confiscated this disc that was an early attempt to make an electromagnetic anti-gravity thing. It wasn't fully operational, but they brought it back to the United States. And how do we know this? Because towards the end of his life, Paul Mellon, who was very instrumental with Allen Dulles in forming the CIA and all that stuff. Remember, the OSS became the CIA, the OSS during World War II. And when he was getting older, he had had a couple martinis and told his grandson, John Warner IV, that in fact he had gone over there and brought this thing back, and that it was not one of the jet rocket thrusters, it was electromagnetic and anti-gravity. And so, I mean, that we're talking now the end of World War II in Germany in 1945. So that is something, what you find is that as some of these folks get older, before they meet their maker, as it were, they start telling things to me or to other family members who then share it. So that's, a pattern that in terms of, I have debriefed, if you look at this list, there's 760 whistleblowers and witnesses, but I've met with more. Some of them I never quite get their name. There's probably over 1,000. But all the people on that list I've debriefed. Over 34 years. So I carry that in my head, which is why I'm trying to put some of this down, in case something happens to me.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.